Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our latest webinar, which is around the Gen Z Playbook that we are going to be launching in the coming days and weeks as you hear this. We're excited to be talking about the Gen Z consumer and transformational strategies for engaging with them. My name is Scott Latchett. I am the President of Research and Strategy at PSFK. Before we get into the content, I just wanted to take a moment and talk to you quickly about membership. If you're hearing this, you may likely be a member, but if you are not, feel free to reach out to our colleague Jeff Weiner, jeff.weiner@psfk.com, and he'll be happy to talk to you about all of the great services that we offer. Within the context of this report, we've identified 4 larger steps for activating Gen Z consumers. It's something that we're really excited about sharing with you. As a whole, we see the Gen Z consumers really living their lives fluidly in all senses of the word, both in terms of how they choose to identify themselves, how they think about their lives both on and offline, thinking about more broadly how community plays a role in their day-to-day life. They're extremely entrepreneurial, thinking about performance and personal goals, and really just taking a creative approach to the way they live their lives. Within the context of this report, we talk about these 4 bigger stages, and within that, we've identified a number of trends under each. For the purposes of today, what I'll be doing is just kind of highlighting each of those 4 steps at a high level, and then taking you through at a very high level one example that will help bring that idea to life. This idea of free expression is super important to Gen Z, and this notion of being yourself is extremely prevalent across all the platforms that they're engaging with, all of the both social and media, and also throughout their real-life interactions. They're truly the first digitally native generation that has grown up using social media and just digital platforms in general as a way to connect with people, as a way to think about their own individual identities. And it's really a mirror that helps them really take ownership of their identity and the way that they relate to the world. One interesting example of this is a partnership that Tinder, the online dating platform, has engaged with GLAAD, which is the LGBTQ rights organization. And as important, obviously, as it is to think about how just more broadly the culture of dating has changed vis-a-vis digital platforms, the way individuals can identify themselves within the context of those platforms has been fairly limited. And so Tinder was being very progressive in terms of thinking about offering a much broader notion of ways that consumers can kind of step in, or users of this platform can step in and identify themselves in the way that they feel most comfortable. And that in turn impacts the algorithm and the matches that are being offered up to that individual. Alongside the blur that's happening in digital and physical life, community still plays a massive role in terms of how Gen Z are beginning to think about, again, their identity within the context of the bigger group. They've grown up online, and that online space has been their playground. It's their way of connecting with friends, both people that they know in real life, but even more broadly, folks that they have shared identity and interests with from all over the world. That notion of in-the-moment sort of digital hangouts is something that's become second nature. And beyond the sort of notion of just hanging out, we see the ability for these individuals to start to use these platforms as a way to not only connect, but also collaborate with their friends and other people who share their same passions and interests. One interesting example of this is a platform called Squad, which is a screen sharing video chat app that lets users share screens and browse the web together. What's interesting is that, different from the sort of standard live streaming chat, sort of group chat platforms, this one isn't showing users' faces necessarily, but it's allowing them to share what they're actually looking at on their screen. For those of you who live in New York City, I think you can sort of understand the desire to look at other people's screens while you're within the context of your day-to-day commute. super interesting when that becomes the sort of point of connection. And again, I think it's interesting to see the role that content plays within the broader lives of consumers today. And it is really that sort of connection point and the way that people, sort of interact and share with one another today. The next theme that we're talking about is what we're calling Empower the Hustle. And this is really sort of tapping into Gen Z's entrepreneurial spirit and, again, their sort of collaborative nature. As we saw within the context of the previous theme, community is so important to them, and the ability for them to find like-minded individuals both to collaborate with and within the context of the sort of entrepreneurial nature is an audience to sell to as well. There's this new sort of peer-to-peer commerce model that's starting to take shape. And there's an interesting opportunity for brands to step in and help support these entrepreneurial Gen Zers with all sorts of new platforms and tools as well. SoundCloud has been a really interesting platform for up-and-coming musicians to share their work and establish an audience. There hasn't necessarily always been a path for them to monetize the creative work that they've done. With the launch of SoundCloud Premier, there's now an opportunity for independent musicians to start to make money from their streaming music work. This is really interesting sort of stepping stone as we see all these digital platforms really sort of creating opportunities not only for that sort of incremental value, but then also as a launch pad potentially for broader careers as well, and identifying new influencers and sort of future stars as well. The final theme that I want to talk about today is what we're calling inspiring positive change. And Gen Z really wants to have an impact on the world. They strongly value their opinions and expertise, and they want to have an opportunity to actually use their abilities to develop better products, services, and content. So there's really an opportunity for brands to step in, share that level of ownership that they have with consumers, and create new ways for them to contribute to their overall success. One example of how a brand is tapping into this is an initiative called Kashi by Kids, which the cereal brand did in collaboration with a team of 5 Gen Zers called the Kashi crew, who each had a specific level of expertise in some area of food, nutrition, the arts, or sustainability. And what they did was essentially spent a year consulting with this group of Gen Zers to co-create a line of organic superfood cereals and snacks aimed at children. Again, this is sort of going directly to those consumers and not just asking for their opinions, but actively working with them to really sort of co-create and co-develop that brand, tapping into their influence within their own peer groups and consumers as well, so that when that product actually comes to the marketplace, that there is a level of excitement and a built-in audience for that product as well. Want to take a moment to thank you all for listening in to the webinar around the Gen Z Playbook, Transformational Strategies for Engaging with Next-Gen Consumers. If you have any questions about the content that we've just walked you through, or any questions about membership, please feel free to follow up with our colleague jeff.wiener@psfk.com. Again, that's jeff.wiener@psfk.com. He would be happy to speak with you and pass along any questions that you might have. And we're excited to be launching this report and really appreciate you taking the time to listen along with us today.